Executive Director for the Alzheimer's Association. We want to welcome you to our annual conference on Alzheimer's and Dementia, those who are here in person and those attendees on Zoom. I would like to take a quick moment to introduce you to Anna Flores, our board chair.
Thank you, Marcy, and I think I got to meet almost everyone coming in the door. I hope I did anyway. I just want to share something with you. I, on Facebook, belong to a lot of support groups, even though I've lost my mom. So if you look for me on Facebook, it's Anna Flores, and it doesn't have my picture. It has a picture of some flowers, because that's my last name. But I heard something from someone that was very moving to me, and it said that, you know, sometimes we think, why does this happen to me, when we should maybe think, why has this happened for me? It happened for me today, so that I could be here with all of you and share this moment. It happened to me today, so that I can hopefully be bringing you the love and light and hope that I gathered as I took this journey. Thank you so much for being here this morning. We really appreciate you.
Thank you so much, Anna. The Planning Committee of Outstanding Volunteers has coordinated a full day of education and support. Please visit each of the exhibitors area next door. We want to thank them, and they are listed on the back of your agenda and will be shown through the screen during the breaks. We have other folks to thank because we couldn't make this possible without everybody that contributes. It's Grandbrook Memory Care for donating breakfast, Gonzaga Foundation for donating the coffee, a special thanks to Senior Planet from AARP for donating all the IT coordination, and Heart of Texas Hospice for donating on-site respite. As evidenced by the news recently coming out of the Alzheimer's Association International Conference held in July, we are now in an era of new treatments. Do you know what that means, everyone? Hope. We want to thank you again. You're going to hear a lot of information. Thank you to UT Health San Antonio and the Biggs Institute for hosting us. I would now like to introduce you to Ashley Paredes, evening anchor at Fox San Antonio News at 9, who recently did a program with us.
I'm always filming, so right now, if you saw me, I'm trying to set my phone up and start filming some of this, because I will be airing a little bit tonight at 9 o'clock. I won't be working tonight, but I will be sharing about today's event and how much it means to me and my family. So let me take this off just a little bit. That way I can kind of look at everybody. Hello. So I do the news here in San Antonio. I'm born and raised here. And for 13 years, I had been working all over. Started in Amarillo, then Austin, Dallas, Phoenix. And I was in Phoenix actually the last 3.5 years. I moved back a year ago because of my grandmother. I love her so much. She's like a second mom to me. And, you know, when I started visiting back, you know, when I was still away, I was noticing that her short-term memory wasn't doing that great, and she was later diagnosed with dementia. And I knew I had to move back. She's so important to me. And since I've moved back, over the last year, I have learned so much about the disease and what caregivers go through. So my mom and her two sisters are caregivers, and they have been for the last couple of years. Just recently, over probably the last 6 months, we ended up hiring somebody that lives with my grandmother there with her 24/7. Before that, my grandma was going to each one of the daughters' homes to kind of, you know, stay the night there, and my mom and aunts would take care of her. But now, even though she's now back in her home with the nurse taking care of her, my mother, her two sisters, me, we all go on a daily basis to go over there and just really connect with my grandmother and make sure that we keep her memory going, whether that's playing games or taking her out to visit different spots, restaurants. I will say, you know, like I mentioned, I have learned a lot over this last year. I now know, you know, what things will help my grandmother progress. So that comes to, you know, walking, getting her moving. Now she is in a walker, primarily in a wheelchair, but if we can get her up and walking just a little bit, I tell you, you know, that is the best way to get her going, because later that day I can ask her questions and she's super sharp. You know, also when we're playing memory games, so we'll sit there and we'll play Loteria or Bingo, and it's funny because when you least expect it, she will snap back at you. You know, the other day we were playing and I'm like, Bingo, and she's like telling the nurse next to her, check her card, make sure. I was like, oh my goodness, like that's my grandmother, you know, because these little signs of hope that she knows who I am. She recognizes what we're doing. She remembers, for the most part, her long-term memories great. You know, remembering things from when she was younger and me and my family, which I'm so grateful for that she remembers us. Her short-term memory is what she struggles with. So doing those games that we can kind of recall, you know, different things. But it's just so funny because whenever I look at her, or there's certain times when I just sit with her, and that's when she does her best. When we're out in a restaurant setting or a public setting, she's distracted with so many things, she can't really focus. So I know if I have to talk to her and I want to share something with her, to, you know, isolate her by herself, look at her into her eyes, and really have her focus in on me. And it's interesting because my brother and my sister, they both have families, and so they're busy. They only get to see her when we're, you know, family gatherings, and so they see a different side of my grandmother now, just to where, like, you know, she's quieter, and, you know, it's hard for her to speak. And I see the grandma that I have always known and loved, and I really appreciate the time that I get to spend with her, because it's just so special and meaningful to me. Just sitting there, even when we're playing games, I look at her and we have this thing that we've always had for years where we look at each other and we kind of raise one eyebrow and we're like, yes. And she still does it just by nature. And so those little signs give me hope, and I'm just so excited. She may not remember what exactly we did the day before, but she remembers that I am there with her, and that's all that matters to me. And so I thank everybody that's here in this room, including my mother, who works hard as caregivers, or who are here today to help provide support and resources to caregivers, because we all know you guys do a lot. I know what it takes, and it's hard work. So please hang strong and know that there is light at the end of the tunnel. So thank you so much. I appreciate you guys all being here today. I am so honored to be here. And I want to bring up another special guest, if she is here right now. Meet District 7 Council Member Marina Alderete Gavito. So nice to see you.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Marina Alderete Gavito, and yes, I'm the councilwoman for District 7. I'm so honored to be joining you all this morning. Thank you so much for allowing me this opportunity. I did want to cover a few things that we do as city council members and as a city to support our seniors. How are you? One of my first initiatives, I just got elected to my second term, was the Senior Assistance Pilot Program. And what that is the city used to have a small fund for our older adults who have code compliance issues. Grass is too long, trees, a dead tree or whatever. So what I did is that I allocated funds for every single council district to have at least $10,000 to help our seniors who may be struggling with code compliance issues. And what we see often happens is that maybe a senior has a medical, maybe a stay at the hospital for a little while, grass gets long, and then they come home and then they get a ticket. And I grew up here in San Antonio, and so I know about treating our older adults with respect, and so that's what I was trying to do through policy. And so now we've seen that the Senior Assistance Pilot Program, which is essentially this fund to help with code compliance issues, has been extremely successful. And sorry, I'm just trying to tap my back with anybody. And what we found that during that first year was that most of the time it was used to replace a dead tree. Like there was an old dead tree and maybe it had fallen into the neighbor's yard. Those dead trees are expensive to get out, you know, on average it was around $1,200. So we were excited to bring that program to the seniors of San Antonio. And one of the other things that I was attempting to do is, and still gonna do it, is increase the transportation radius to our senior centers. Right now, the city will pick you up if you're within a 5-mile radius of the senior centers. I'm trying to expand that to at least 8 miles, or where it makes sense the most. I do want to talk about a hot topic. Y'all probably heard about Project Marvel and all the exciting stuff downtown. So that is this past week on City Council, we voted to move forward with the term sheet on Project Marvel, or the Sports Entertainment District. That's going to be exciting. You all will have the final say in November. But what we're trying to do is not only to create the Spurs Arena downtown, but create a whole district downtown. We know, you know, thriving cities have thriving downtowns. And so if y'all have any questions about that, please let me know. But I do want to stress that this is not an impact to homeowners or renters' taxes, you know, their property taxes at all. So we're looking at different funds. Unless you're really renting a hotel room or a car downtown, you may pay an extra fee. Your taxes are going to be a little bit higher. But the deal is structured so that way there's no property tax increase to our homeowners or renters. But I think that's about all I had. I know I'm going to introduce Byron, but do y'all have any questions from me or anything going on in our local government? Awesome.
Yeah.
No, yes. And now I'm going to turn it over to Byron. But if y'all need me, y'all have my email, or you could just look online at the city's website, and feel free to reach out. I'm here to serve. Thank you.
So much. We really appreciate it. I hate to cut off the councilwoman. I'm going to get a bunch of parking tickets now. But thank you. We really appreciate you being here. And thank you so much, Ashley, for kicking us off and telling us your story. I'm Byron Cordes. I get to be your MC today. I'm a past board president for the Alzheimer's Association, and still get the pleasure of sitting on the board. But I'm going to introduce, real quickly before our first speaker, our first 2-minute speaker. So visiting practitioners and palliative care, Mona, is going to come up, and I don't see her. Where's Mona?
Go to the next one.
Okay. Birch and Bowes Elder Law. We're coming on up. There you go. Oh my gosh. All right, here you go.
Good morning. Hi, I am Jody Hudspeth, Senior Paralegal for Birch and Bowes Elder Law, and I'm so happy to be here today. At 11 o'clock, you'll get a real treat. One of our attorneys, Autumn Puckett, is going to present to y'all, and you will learn some really good things about planning for long-term care, and also how to preserve assets for yourself and get your spouse or your parent care and not go bankrupt yourself. We are able to do that. We're able to save homes from the Medicaid Estate Recovery Program, and we're able to preserve retirements and things like that to ensure that families can get their loved ones the care they need, and also save resources for themselves as they continue to age. And anyway, if y'all ever have any questions about elder law or anything like that, please come by and take one of our cards. You're welcome to call us anytime and ask us questions. I'm happy to bounce around ideas with you. And I hope y'all have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jody. You didn't say also you're our lunch sponsor. So what a huge round of applause. Yay for food. All right. And then for the Biggs Institute, another one of our big sponsors, I don't know, Dr. Patel, are you talking? All right. Dr. Neela Patel, you're in for a treat for talking about the Biggs Institute at UT.
Thank you. UT Health and the Biggs Institute is very happy to provide this space and sponsor this event. I think it's 4 years in a row now, and this year we're really happy to see the number of people and caregivers that come here for the event. So UT, the Biggs Institute started in 2017, and Dr. Sudha Sheshadri was brought here from Boston as our founding director. And all of you all know the power woman that she is. And she hasn't stopped being the power woman. So in December this year, we have the first of its kind Center for Brain Health that will be opened, which is the building next to the Medical Arts and Research Center. It's a center that brings in not just research, but care and multidisciplinary teams, and also brings in the community. So we have a lot of community engagement areas. We will be having a community garden. We have almost an entire floor for community engagement, for either classes, art, the music therapy room, and I think they will have some tours after the inauguration of that building for the community to come and see what the new Center for Brain Health has. I will not talk a lot more because I do want to give time to our speaker, Dr. Sami Abdullah, who is going to be presenting on anti-amyloid therapies, the hope, the newest therapies that are giving us some hope. And he is an assistant professor at the Biggs Institute, and he practices out of the Robert B. Green building downtown. So Dr. Sami Abdullah.
Come on up. But we do have one more speaker, Home to Home for Seniors, Barbara Lambert. Come on up. And tell us about what you're doing.
Good morning.
Good morning.
When someone you love is diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease, the ground beneath you shifts. There's fear, grief, 1,000 questions, and yet there's also a quiet moment of clarity. Because now, you know. And that knowing is powerful. At Home to Home for Seniors, we believe that planning doesn't begin when things get hard. It begins right here at diagnosis. That's when families can take control. That's when care can be shaped around your values, your dignity, and the love that holds you together. We help families navigate the tough stuff, the legal documents, financial decisions, care options, home safety, but we also help with the tender things. Conversations that are hard to start, preserving stories that matter, finding joy in routine even as they're changing. We know this journey is not easy, but you don't have to take this journey alone. Whether you're overwhelmed by choices, unsure where to begin, or just need someone to listen, we're here. We offer guidance, connection, and compassion, and we never charge for our services. No catch, no pressure, just real help from people that care. If you're wondering what comes next or how to protect what matters most, please stop by our table, Home to Home for Seniors, in the next room. You can pick up a sheet where planning starts at diagnosis off our table. So let's talk, let's plan, let's make sure this journey is guided by love and not by fear. Thank you. I'm Barbara with Home to Home for Seniors.
Thank you so much, Barbara. And thank you to all of our sponsors. We couldn't do today without them, of course. And real quickly, CEUs. If you're a nurse or a social worker and you're needing your continuing education, as long as you signed in at the front door, if you signed in on Zoom, or if you're at our satellite location, as long as you signed in, you'll be getting an email in the next week or so. So no worries, you're not going to walk out of here with a CEU certificate, but it is on its way. And with that, I will let Dr. Abdullah get started. Thank you so much, Dr. Abdul. Professor of Neurology and Director of Memory Clinic at Robert E. Creed.
Are you looking for both?
Good morning, everybody. Thank you all for being here. Wow. It's an honor to be here. I didn't correct the first slide, which Dr. Salardini prepared. Is that better? Yes. Thank you all for being here. I'm Sami Abdullah. I'm an assistant professor at the RBG Center with the Biggs Institute. Dr. Salardini was planning to give this talk, and he made a lot of the slides here, and he just unfortunately couldn't be here, and I was lucky to be here with you and talk with you about the updates in the anti-amyloid therapy. I don't have any conflict of interest. I think just we're gonna go through briefly what is Alzheimer's disease first. I'm gonna hold this so that now is better. So that we're able to understand what are the updates on the treatment that we're talking about. Especially there is some updates in our understanding of what the Alzheimer's disease is, as well as some updates in detecting those changes, which had allowed this understanding and allowed the new service. At the very core, the Alzheimer's disease is now existing on a spectrum of neuropathology, starting with the neuropathological changes in the brain, and then as that progresses through different stages, eventually there start evolving symptoms or the clinical presentation of the Alzheimer's. And this starts from the core pathology of the Alzheimer's protein, the Alzheimer's disease, the amyloid. And you can think of the amyloid as a protein we all have in the brain. In a normal state, it has a function. Now the issue is when there is an abnormal splicing of this protein resulting in the sticky parts that accumulates over years or decades and eventually causing the other changes. So we look at this image here. At the middle of the picture is the APP, the amyloid precursor protein. And think of it as a woven rope that is crossing the cell membrane, the yellow part. And in the normal state, breaking this protein down for recycling should go to the left of the image with the non-amyloidogenic pathway through enzymes alpha secretase and then gamma secretase. This will result in forming pieces that are easier to carry, non-sticky, no problem. The issue happened here with we start having an abnormal splicing to the right of the amyloid precursor proteins, where now beta secretase is breaking down this amyloid, and that results in a bigger or thicker pieces that are sticky, and that's the amyloid beta 42. And at the beginning, it's just a one block, but this one block will accumulate, forming big pieces of 5 blocks, and then that's the oligomers, then they accumulate more to make a little fibrils, and then they will accumulate to form the amyloid plaques, and then later even the senile plaques. And this was the amyloid cascade hypothesis. A little update is that there is the modified amyloid cascade hypothesis where amyloid is just part of the story and maybe the initial trigger. But this accumulation of the small pieces that we talked about, especially as they are still in the soluble state, where they are just short little fibrils, they are toxic to the neuronal ends, and they trigger another protein called tau, T-A-U, to also start dysfunctioning. It's a worker protein, think of it as a builder. And when they start getting phosphorylated, when they are not functioning well, they fall off the scaffolding. So they're not building the blocks anymore. And instead, they also accumulate, this time inside the neuronal cells. So now we would have the accumulation of the amyloid protein at the outside, forming the plaques. And inside the neurons, we have the tangles from the tau protein. A third piece of this puzzle that actually tips off the balance is with this, the supporting cells in the brain, including the microglia and the astrocyte, at first they initiate an inflammation response that could at first be helpful, but eventually they become a long hauler, anti-inflammatory or inflammation state, and together with the tau, that drives the progression, the neurodegeneration, losing the synapses at first and then losing the neurons as well. And that could be a good explanation why in imaging or in the progression, how the tau accumulation correlates better with the symptoms of that somebody with Alzheimer's or different forms of Alzheimer's would be experiencing. So the areas of the brain that would produce the symptoms are having, the tau is specific to these areas, where the amyloid accumulation is non-specific. It can be any part of the brain, even those who are not causing any problems. So this is just a summary or like a picture of all we talked about, and the big picture on the left is the amyloid plaques outside of the neurons, and then on the right we're seeing that eventually there's going to be the shrinkage in different parts of the brain, and also when we see in a cross-section that will result to an enlargement of the ventricles, but it's an ex vacuum, it's just an enlargement that happens secondary to having more room, so the water chambers of the brain will enlarge to replace that space. On this here we're seeing most of what we talked about, so years of research and plotting the changes. We see on the very early on the left, the earliest changes are the biological changes with the A-beta amyloid accumulation. Then that's followed by the tau accumulation, and then after that, we start seeing the typical the symptoms or the clinical changes. So now we're moving into talking about how are we detecting this, or how do we measure the different stages. And with the biomarkers, one of the cornerstones have been the amyloid scan, the PET scan. It's a type of the scan we're doing, the images look that way, but it has a tracer that attached to the amyloid, the abnormal amyloid, and then that way we detect the presence of the amyloid, which is now the first stage that can be diagnosed as Alzheimer's disease. On the very far left, we see the normal scan, and then next to that is the progression from mild to moderate to widespread accumulation of the amyloid. In this one, this is the amyloid, the tau PET, and also we have the FDG. The difference is the tau here, the tracer is attaching to the second protein that we said goes wrong, the tau protein, and the FDG PET is looking at the function of the different areas. If you see here, it's not compared to the picture before this, where the amyloid could be anywhere. The accumulation of the tau here correlates with different forms of the Alzheimer's. I think I like this because it's a good point to point that not all the two people with Alzheimer's disease could look different, and this could explain that, because the symptoms are going to depend on where the pathology is in the brain rather than what it is. And there are different, the typical or the classic will be the accumulation in the middle parts of the brain, close to the temporal lobe, causing the classic presentation of Alzheimer's with the memory changes. That's what we see on the amnestic. However, even less commonly, less frequently, but we see it where the accumulation starts being more in different areas of the brain, like in the language form of the brain, where early in the presentation there's more pronounced word finding difficulty, and then also the visual form of Alzheimer's, where there is a difficulty or deficit in processing what we're seeing. And then the last one is this executive form of difficulty problem solving. So based on what we went through picture some of the major biomarkers, imaging biomarkers, and based on that, this is also an update in how we make the diagnosis. To do that, they classified the different biomarkers, imaging and fluid biomarkers, meaning the plasma and the cerebrospinal fluid, into two or three groups. The first group is the main one is having two big subgroups. The core one are the biomarkers that are sufficient to say this is Alzheimer's disease. And in core two, those are biomarkers that are specific for the disease, but they are more helpful for prognosis or for staging the disease along the spectrum that we talked about. In the core one, we have the A group, standing for the amyloid beta, and it can either be shown through the amyloid PET scan that we saw, or the A beta 42 presence, either in the plasma or the cerebrospinal fluid. Now, it has to be in a ratio, that's to ground it, more than a standalone number, but it is the A beta in the cerebrospinal fluid or the plasma. Alternatively, there is also the T1, which are more indicators of some dysfunction in the tau protein. And we have in that category the phosphorylated tau 2,117 and the phosphorylated tau 181 and 231. Those numbers are just the residues that are carrying the phosphorylation along the chain of amino acids. And by detecting them, it indicates that there is an amyloid that has already been dysfunctioning and now has triggered also the tau to be dysfunctioning. Now in core 2, we have the NTBR tau 243. This is correlating more with later changes or with stages where there is more accumulation of the abnormal phosphorylated tau. So this table is summarizing some of these changes. Again, the biomarkers based on the source from the cerebrospinal fluid or the plasma or the imaging. And again, the core one is better for the diagnosis, and then we have core to the middle part for the staging. There is also the emerging that our understanding that things don't happen in separation. So it's not uncommon to see a co-pathology, some other proteins that are also not functioning well. And in that case, we were starting to see more commonly overlap with alpha-synuclein, a protein from Lewy body disease or Parkinson's disease family that could change the course of the Alzheimer's pathology. So how do we talk about the stages now of the disease after what we understood now? We're going to look at two slides that will, first we'll look at the biological staging based on the biomarkers that we talked about, and then combine that with the clinical changes. So that with the biological stages, we have from A to D, and is based on what biomarkers or what pathology, based on the biomarkers, is present in the brain. So, for example, in the stage A, we have evidence of amyloid on the PET scan. In the stage B, we start having some evidence of the tau in the initial areas, the areas that get affected. On the other aspect, with the clinical, we now can say that there is stage 0, 1, and 2, where there is not a noticeable decline in the cognition or functions. Stage 2 might have some mild changes, but there is not affecting the ability to function. And then starting from stage 3, which would correlate with the mild cognitive impairment, and then as there is a progression, there is more functional loss. So when we integrate now the biological spectrum with the clinical, we would end with the lower part that has the table that shows that there is, for example, if we say somebody is 2B, it means there is an early biological stage. There's some cognitive symptoms, but no functional loss. This is just pointing towards one thing we talked about, how a co-pathology, another abnormal protein or another issue, could modify the trajectory of the disease that we talked about, where another co-pathology will bring the shift the whole curve more to the left, where there is a quicker progression or changes. On the other side, all the resilience factors that we're still identifying more and more of, whether it's genetics or ecological background, intellectual level, education, that all goes into slowing down the disease. Now we're moving into talking about the anti-amyloid therapy finally, but one last point is, again, we're having here the different stages of forming the amyloid plaques. So starting with the monomers, the very small sticky blocks, then getting into the oligomers, bigger protofibrils, and then the fibrils, and then those fibrils accumulate together, forming the plaques. On the 12 in yellow are the ones that are actually showing changes or got approved by the FDA. I'll point the lecanemab, and it in the image here it correlates with what part of this series of accumulation does it target. So the lecanemab is mainly active against the protofibrils. There is some activity against the plaques, but it's not the main, the core function. On the other side here, we see the donanemab, and that one has the major activity is against the plaques itself. Now, as you see on the lower half of the image, the crenezumab, solanezumab, and the candamizumab, those who were working on, again, the solanezumab and the canarizumab are working on a very early stages of the formation of the amyloid. But the ones that are only that have been approved are lecanemab, donanemab. So we're going to talk more about them. First is lecanemab. Leqembi is the brand name. This was approved in accelerated FDA approval in January 2023. They recruited 1,795 participants, were always mild or early symptomatic Alzheimer's, and we have a group with the kind that received the medication, 898, versus a group that had the placebo, the 897, and we measured the progression or the primary endpoint by the clinical dementia rating, which is standardized way of measuring somebody's functional abilities. At 18 months, people who received the lecanemab had progression that is slower by about 0.45 some boxes from that standardized functional rating, the CDR, some boxes. So another way to say it is the disease progressed anyway, but in the treatment group, the progression was slower by about 0.5 or 27%. Now this 0.5 is less than the minimal clinically important improvement assigned, which is to be 1 point reduction by 18 months. However, but it was statistically significant and robust. So that's how plus there has been clearance of the amyloid, and that's why they got the approval. So the other thing is they noticed that there has been some atrophy or shrinkage in the brain in the treatment group. Now, it's not fully understandable, but there is not a correlating cognitive decline with that shrinkage, and the current consensus is that this is a pseudo-atrophy, maybe because of clearing the plaques or decreasing some of the inflammation, that we have that atrophy. This one now looks the same, but this is from the Trailblazer 2 trial for the donanemab, the second one to get the approval of the FDA, this time July 2024. And again, they recruited participants, 1,736, all in early symptomatic Alzheimer's. One of the differences they did in the design is they measured the tau. So instead of just having the amyloid, they measured the tau with the tau PET scan to see what stage biologically different participants were. Because we said that initially we have the amyloid and then the tau starts accumulating and it indicates a more advanced or more progression in the course. I'll tell you why I'm pointing this out, because when they measured the improved or the slowing down of the symptoms, participants who had intermediate or low tau accumulation, indicating early stage, not just by symptoms, but biologically, they had better response to the treatment, slowing down the worsening by 35%. Now that's compared to the other who had more accumulation of tau, more advanced course, they had 22%. The whole group together on the donanemab had comparative slowing in the course as that we saw with the lecanemab. So about 29% overall. Again, the shrinkage or the decrease in the volume of the brain was similar to, or actually more than what we saw in the lecanemab. We can think, because we said that the donanemab is more targeting the plaques than just the soluble forms. And this is the slide, I should have moved that one earlier, is that showing the improvement or the slowing down. On the right side with the donanemab, the group that had low amyloid accumulation had 35% versus those who had a more later stage with 22%. And then the lecanemab showing that at the 18 months there has been slowing down by about 0.5 on the CDR sum boxes. Inclusion and exclusion for the trial as well as for the current use is the patients are all has to be symptomatic, so mild cognitive impairment is the initial or mild Alzheimer's dementia. scan, having a brain MRI scan within the previous 12 months, and then a biological confirmation for the Alzheimer's disease currently has to be through an amyloid PET scan or cerebrospinal fluid biomarkers. For the mini-mental status examination, as a proxy of the stage of the disease clinically, the cutoff value are currently set at 21 for the lecanemab and 19 for the donanemab. The exclusion criteria has different factors, but recent seizures or recent strokes or ongoing biological treatment or specific immune modulation therapy are among those. Now, the part that I haven't talked about, those two therapies are the side effects. I just wanted to talk about them side to side. But first, let's know what they are. The ARIA, the amyloid-related imaging abnormality, is the name for these changes. They're mostly asymptomatic. A lot of the times we see them on the surveillance MRI. And there are two major groups of the ARIA. One is the edema, which would be the ARIA-E, and the hemorrhagic group, the ARIA-H. In terms of the differences, there is going to be the edema is happening because of inviting the inflammation to the brain when we're trying to get the immune system to clear the fibrils, the plaques, and that causes accumulation of the edema or the fluid in the parenchyma, inside the brain tissue, that's causing the edema that we see on the far left. And then effusion is when there is leakage of the fluid in the coverage of the brain, the leptomeningeal coverages. And then on the hemorrhagic, we have the microhemorrhages inside the brain parenchyma versus accumulation of the breakdown of the hemoglobin, just the hemosiderin accumulating in the subarachnoid space. Comparison-wise, by numbers, the overall ARIA, asymptomatic or symptomatic, in the lecanemab side was less than the donanemab. So the top two numbers here, the ARIA-E 12.6 on the lecanemab and 24 on the donanemab, and the ARIA-H 17 versus 30%. So there was higher rate of ARIA on the donanemab. Symptomatic ARIA was very low on both of them. Less than 2% in lecanemab and 1.6%. Fatal, there was no death or fatal ARIA on the lecanemab. There was only 3 deaths from ARIA on the donanemab side. A big modifying factor for the risk of the ARIA or developing the side effects was the status, the genotype status of the APOE gene. APOE gene is a gene acting as a variation of that gene acts as a risk factor for developing Alzheimer's, and it also acts as a modifying factor for who gets or at more odds of having the bad side effects. We all have 2 copies of the APOE gene, and the variation that we're talking about that carries the risk is number 4 variation. Most of the population are carrying number 3 on both alleles, so they would see the results APOE33. This one is the standard risk that we talked about above. Now, if somebody has 1 copy of number 4, that's the heterogeneous, the APOE4 group, and we see that on the lecanemab, now there is increase in risk, both in the area E and area H. Slight, but we can see it. When compared it with the donanemab, there is even higher increase in the risk. When area E here jumped from 24, 27, and area A from 31 to 35. So if somebody has 2 copies, the homozygous ApoE4, the increase is more. Look at the donanemab here is from 24% risk of area E to 40%, and from area H from 30 to 45%. So this is going to be very important in selecting who is the best candidates and how to talk about how are the risk of the side effects. So if somebody is coming in with the symptoms, we get the confirmation, we get the ApoE status to be able to make the decision on which medication, what risk they have. It's just an illustration of what is the current understanding why this ARIA happens. And simply just once we start having this antibodies trying to break down the plaques, we produce the smaller soluble forms of the amyloid. They go on and form a complex with the ApoE protein, and then that complex will accumulate around the blood vessels, inviting some inflammation, especially when people are already susceptible for the cerebral amyloid angiopathy. This is the small blood vessel changes that happen in a collateral or cousin of the Alzheimer's. Just the protein has been accumulating around the blood vessels more than the brain parenchyma. And I added a couple points. I don't know if I'm running out of time. You can let me know. So even more changes or more updates is one, from the lecanemab in January 2024, they had the biological license application approved for maintenance dose, for maintenance dosing beyond the 18 months. So now they go beyond for 18 months on the infusion every 2 weeks in case of lecanemab, and then after 18 months they would be on the infusion every 1 month, and in selective cases they could be continued as every 2 weeks. So that's number one. And in the study or the data, they haven't published the whole thing, the results are showing that in the open label study extension of the Clarity AD, the trial they had for the lecanemab, 95% of the participants agreed to continue taking the medication, now knowing that they are taking the medication. And then they measured the CDR, the worsening or the changing, the slowing down of the disease. At 36 months, we compare it with a cohort that are not taking the medication to see if there has been slowing. And remember, we said there has been about 0.5 slowing at 18 months. At 36 months, they calculated there has been a slowing by 1 point on the CDR, and even more when compared to a different group. At 48 months, that slowing, that benefit slowing down of the worsening was 1.72, and then, or 2 when compared to the biofinder cohort. So that's to say over 4 years, it slowed down the worsening and the clinical dementia rating, sum of boxes, by 2 points based on this result. And I put the spectrum down there that were the initiation until the 18 months, and then from there forward, either the IV infusion every 1 month or weekly subcutaneous. The other side, just so that we talked about also what is going on with the donanemab or the Eli Lilly, they are not pursuing a subcutaneous formulation of the donanemab. And currently it is still only approved for the finite use, meaning for 18 months and then they stop. But there's been approved modified dosing that showed to reduce the risk of the side effects of the eye. So we said the donanemab was associated with higher incidences of ARIA of all types. And by doing it in this regimen, just basically gradually titrating the dose over first 4 dosing, it should decrease the ARIA. The other thing is, the younger, maybe calling it the younger brother from donanemab, Gerontology, is targeting the same epitope, the same target inside the plex. But this time it is subcutaneous. And they currently in phase 3 trials for early symptomatic Alzheimer's. This is the trail runner. And also they are in use for prevention for the early autosomal dominant Alzheimer's disease. So just in summary, targeting the amyloid data is the therapy focusing on reducing the accumulation of the amyloid plaques in the brain, which are again the first step in the cascade of the changes from Alzheimer's disease. And then we have the monoclonal antibodies, the anti-amyloid therapies, lecanemab and donanemab. Aducanumab is the one that was first tried to do the same thing, but their studies, the trial did not show sufficient benefit. They didn't meet the primary end goal in one trial, and in that second one they met, but there's been controversy and high risk of side effects, so that's been discontinued. So now we have the lecanemab, every 2 weeks infusion, approved for maintenance beyond the 18 months, and now with the available, or soon to be available for the subcutaneous for maintenance doses, and then the donanemab. We talked about the mechanism of action and how they target different stages of formulation of the amyloid. In the lecanemab, targeting more the protofibrils. These are the soluble stage of the amyloid, and then in the donanemab, targeting more the plaques, the ones that are well formed. We talked about both showed in terms of clinical efficacy, comparable results of the slowing down, did not reverse the symptoms or give improvement, but slowed down the progression. And in the case of lecanemab, when they followed the participants taking the medications over 3 years and then 4 years, there's been even more difference between taking the medications and not taking. And then finally, we talked about the risk factors and how there's going to be a little bit challenging because the selection of the right patient is going to be the most important point against decreasing the chances of the side effects.
I'm just going to sum it up, like some of the slides were very detailed, and so the highlights is from what Dr. Abdullah showed us. Changes are seen in the brain much before we see the signs and the change in function in persons who have the changes in the brain. So the earlier we pick up the signs of changes in function, the faster we are going to be able to target the person's treatment to prevent it. And then the prevention, in addition to seeing the decrease in all the proteins that cause the changes in the brain, the function is what is most important for us. And Dr. Abdullah spoke about the clinical dementia rating, or the CDR. 0 and 0.5 is where we could function normally. So with the treatment continuing for 4 years, by bringing it down by 2 points, we are saying that we are bringing down the functional status to normal function, where there is functional independence. So really, there is hope, and there is, treatments that are going to be available. I'm pretty sure in the next 10 years, we will have tackled this disease much before it affects the function and quality of life of the people we love. Thank you.
Do you have time for questions?
A couple of questions, you bet.
How do you determine the difference, and I'm not going to be able to say the words very well, the Leqembi, my husband happens to be on it, and the other drug, how do you determine what patient would benefit on either one? Because there seems to, the little bit of research that I've read, and I'm not a doctor, there's some things really strong with Leqembi and some things that are really strong with the other.
Again, transparent data between the two trials is not that easy, but both have showed similar response, like similar improvement in slowing down of the disease. And for me, the major difference is, one, that donanemab is every 4 weeks. So sometimes people have a lifestyle or a reason not to be able to have an infusion every 2 weeks from the lecanemab, or they have to travel or something like that. That's a factor. But then also we said the other factor that we consider is that the donanemab was having higher odds of the ARIA, the side effects. So definitely if somebody already has some other reason to suspect that we are at higher odds of having the hemorrhage, we'll try to stay away then from the donanemab. Having said that, now there is the modified dosing that decreases the potential for the side effects. Still, it's a little bit more invasive in targeting the plaques, and that's why it causes more side effects. So to me, the big factor is driven by the potential side effects. For the patient, sometimes the benefits of taking it less frequently, infusion. But time will show now if there is an actual different benefits or issues from lecanemab, the donanemab. For now, the lecanemab is the one that has also have longitudinal extension, showing even more progression growth for the maintenance dose. So those are also factors that we have in consideration if we are planning to continue the treatment.
Could you please go back to that summary screen? Is there a way to do that?
Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
Okay, I think we're at time. I'm so sorry. So I do.
Thank you so much.
Did you just want to take a picture of that? Is that a question? Okay. Thank you so much, Dr. Abdullah. And thank you, Dr. Patel, for helping too. We can't thank UT and the Biggs Institute enough. We are so blessed to have them in our community. So I do want to announce we have more coffee cups. Apparently, I don't drink coffee, but apparently that was an issue. So there's coffee and there's cups you can stop drinking out of your hands. Also, your bingo cards. I'm going to steal this bingo card right here, sorry. You should have a bingo card in your packet, so as long as you go next door to our resource room, get those all signed off, checked off, thank you, and then drop it into the purple bucket over at the table there. And you'll be in the drawing for some of those beautiful prizes that are all lined up along the back. So with that, I'm going to bring up one of our fabulous vendors and a board member, Mona, I can't pronounce her last name, Mona. Mona's going to pronounce her last name for us, visiting practitioners in palliative care.
Thanks, Warren. Good morning, everyone. My name is Mona Talukdar. For the last 30 years, I've dedicated myself providing care for dementia patients and their caregivers. I'm also, like he said, I'm currently serving as a board member for Alzheimer's Association. I don't want to show my back to you all. I also started visiting practitioners in palliative care during COVID. And recently, he was selected by Medicare to be a guide participant. As a guide participant, what is GUIDE? It's a new program by Medicare, which is going to provide care navigation for dementia patients to relieve caregiver burden. This is the first time in Medicare history they are addressing caregiver burden and relieving the burden from the caregiver. What does GUIDE offer? It actually gives you a 24/7 personal navigator. Who can help you with care coordination, medication management, respite care, and also home environment modification. I'm also going to say who qualifies for GUIDE. Anyone that's diagnosed with dementia and has Medicare, they will qualify for GUIDE. And the most important, I like the aspect of GUIDE is the respite care. What is respite care? Respite care under Medicare is going to give you a private duty care provider at home. It's going to allow you to have your loved one to go to a daycare center. And also, if you're traveling and you need to have some break, it gives you overnight 24-hour respite care. What does it cost you all? Does it cost anything to the beneficiary of Medicare? None. Zero. It costs $0 to the beneficiary. So it's free. So if you're interested in getting more information for GUIDE, which I, the last 2 years, have spent time with Medicare learning and planning this whole thing. It's the most innovative program I have seen since I have moved in the country since 1989. So I would really like you to stop by our desk at Visiting Practitioners. We have GUIDE brochures. We can help you. We can show you how to pre-align and help you get you more information. I think it's an amazing program. It's for the next 8 years. If you're already selected GUIDE participants, please stop by. And I think in town we have 3 GUIDE participants. One is UT Health Science Center, one is Visiting Practitioner, and I think the third one is Ripple by Alzheimer's Association. And those 3 are the only GUIDE participants in town. So please stop by and gather some information. And thank you for giving me this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Mona. Thank you so much. All right. I do want to quickly, I'm going to give a shout out to the Alzheimer's staff. So if you have, the work that the Alzheimer's Association does is fantastic, of course. If you're Alzheimer's staff, can you raise your hand, stand up? They're typically all in purple. Ginny Funk is moving her way up here. Right? So if you have any questions, of course, stop by the table, but stop one of these lovely people too. They'd be happy to help you.